guys, welcome back to my channel. I recently made an Ulta order for a whole bunch of items from Undone Beauty. So we have the matte tinted moisturizer, the concealer palette, the bronzer palette, I have a blush here, I have a highlighter here, and I have an eyeshadow palette. Today is just going to be basically a full face of Undone Beauty. To start off, I'm going to use this Undone Unfoundation matte tint. This is in the shade Soft Beige Medium. So I'm hoping that this will be an okay match for me. I just pumped out a little bit on the back of my hands. Okay, if you can see that, it's like a tiny bit dark, but I think we can make it work pretty well. So one of the ingredients in here is tea tree oil, which you can definitely smell. You can smell kind of like the essential oils in it, which doesn't typically bother me, but if you're sensitive to smells, I would take that into consideration. So I just I squeezed out a little bit on my hand. I'm just gonna try and rub this in with my hands. Okay, that's definitely a light coverage. It looks really nice. It covered a little bit. It doesn't even look like I'm wearing anything. I don't see anything like on top of my skin, which is nice because it's a tinted moisturizer and that's kind of what I would use this for. I'm gonna see if I can build up just a little bit more coverage on my cheeks where it's a little bit more red. And I'm actually gonna see what using a sponge would do. I think you get a good coverage with the sponge as well. So I'm gonna squeeze a little bit more out. I'm gonna say I really like the way this looks so far. Like you literally can't see anything on the skin. Like it doesn't even look like I'm wearing anything right now. Also, I think the shade range is close enough. It's not an exact match, but I'm fine with that. I'm really liking the way that looks. I also like that it's more of a matte. I wouldn't say it's completely matte. I would say it's more of like a soft matte. I'm really liking the way that looks. Next, I have this Conceal to Reveal palette. This is also in Soft Beige Medium. So the cool thing about this concealer palette is that it has 3 different finishes. I believe it's just light, medium, and full, and it's all in one palette. The formula feels very creamy. I'm just gonna swatch these on the back of my hand, and I'm not sure if you can really see that, but it does seem to hold true. So this is the lightest coverage, medium, and then most coverage. I am actually gonna go in with the medium coverage, and I'm just gonna use my finger because I feel like that would be the easiest way. And I'm just patting this out. It's pretty nice. I don't notice it sinking into any fine lines, which can happen with like creamy concealers like this. I like that. I like that a lot. On the other eye, I just want to try the full coverage concealer. So I'm gonna dip into that one and just do the same thing, just tap it out with my finger. Okay, definitely the same texture and consistency. It's very creamy, it blends out really easily. I do think it looks just a little bit like higher coverage than the medium coverage side, but I don't think there's a huge difference, honestly. But it might be because I kind of went in with 2 layers on this side. And I have this little blemish here, so I'm gonna see how this looks on the blemish. I'm gonna take the full coverage concealer. I blended it out a little, which is why it kind of lost coverage. But if you just focus like on that spot and not kind of diffuse it, it does cover it almost all the way. I'm just gonna take what's left over and kind of just put it on my eyelids just to even out the color a little bit. I'm also really liking the way that feels. For the matte tint, it is completely dried down. Like, it's not sticky or tacky at all. And as far as the concealer doesn't really feel tacky at all either. So it dries down pretty quickly. I'm really liking the way my base looks right now. Like, it really looks like I almost have nothing on, which is crazy. I'm thoroughly enjoying this as of right now. I don't think I've ever had a tinted moisturizer look this good on my skin. And it's matte too. I'm amazed. I'm very looking forward to using this more. Next up, we have this lip to cheek palette. This is in the shade Blazen. So it's kind of the same idea as the concealer. The cheek palette is just a little bit smaller than the concealer palette. And again, it has like light, medium, and full coverage. And again, the tones are all the same. This is light, medium, and full. I am just gonna take, this is the e.l.f. Putty Blush. It's kind of like a stipple brush. I'm just gonna take this and go into the middle shade, but I'm not gonna be too careful if I go into like the lighter or heavier shade. And let's try and blend this out. So quite pigmented. This is also a very bright color. Maybe a little too bright, or maybe I just put a little too much. Yeah, this is definitely a super bright color. I'm just gonna put some on my nose for more of like a sunburnt look. I'm gonna take the sponge I was using and just try and tone that down a little bit. As far as how that blended out super easily. I don't see any lifting of the foundation. I think after going over it with the sponge a little bit, the color doesn't look too bad. For a second there, I was a little worried, but I think it's okay. I feel like I would really like this on the lips in the summer as kind of like a popsicle stain type of color. I think that'd be very pretty. Next up, I have the bronzer and the highlighter. These pans are way bigger than the blush for comparison. I wasn't expecting them to be this big, but these are powder formulas, and the cheek and the blush and the concealer were cream formulas. All right, so here's a little close-up of the bronzer. The 2 bottom shades are more like highlighter shades. Okay, and the darker shade that's on top is more of like a neutral shade, and this is kind of more of an orangey shade. The shimmery shades are a lot creamier, so those look more like highlighters than anything. I think I'm just gonna mix the two. I'm gonna take this small brush here. This is ColourPop F32 brush. And I'm just gonna go in to the top two shades and mix those two. It looks a little patchy over the cream. I'm just gonna try and diffuse it. I'm just gonna take a clean powder brush and try and just diffuse underneath here where I went a little hard. So I have a feeling that like a small brush like this is too impactful, and I think I need more of a fluffy brush. So this cheek really doesn't look good right now. I picked some up on this fluffy brush, and I'm gonna diffuse this over my forehead. And I think that looks a little bit better, but it still looks just a tiny bit patchy. Okay, big brush is definitely the way to go with this. I'll have to play around with this a little bit more because this powder over the cream blush looks a little bit patchy, and I'm not loving the way this looks on top, so I definitely need to try this underneath the blush. I also have this highlighter, and these highlighters look very pretty, and I feel like I would get a lot of use out of this purple one, especially as like a topper shade, like an eyeshadow topper shade to specify. So that's that purple one. That is very pretty. It is definitely pigmented, and it has a very like purple base. I feel like I really want to use this as a topper for my eyeshadow. So I'm just gonna take this highlighter brush. This is an F33, and I'm just kind of swirl in these two lighter shades here. I'm gonna say the glow it gives is very pretty. It might be a little bit sparkly, which is not my preferred type of highlighter. Like you can definitely see like actual glitter particles in it, even though they're fine glitter particles. So that's it for highlighter. Again, I'm gonna go back to that palette when I'm doing my eyeshadow, but first I'm gonna do my brows. I'm just gonna use things that I already have. Okay, brows are done. I primed my eyes, and we're gonna go in with this Undone Curator Eye Quad in the shade 5535, that's the T. So it looks like this is the only matte shade here. This is like a gold reflect. This is more of like a bronzy reflect, and this is like a pinky bronze reflect. I'm gonna take this fluffy brush, and I'm just gonna go into the matte one first. Definitely not the most pigmented, but it does the job. I had to build it up just a little bit, but it's not bad. I'm gonna take the darker bronzy shade on a pencil brush, and I am just gonna go on along the lash line with this. Okay, this one is actually quite pigmented and quite dark, and I got a little carried away, so I'm gonna go back into the brown shade we just used and just try and blend this out. Yeah, I kind of messed up there. I really wasn't trying to wing it out so much. That's gonna be the best we're gonna do for now. That's fine. So I'm gonna take the pinky bronze shade. These are also very soft eyeshadows. They're very creamy. And I'm gonna put this, oh, this is also like a very dark color. Okay. These colors together just kind of look muddy. I really thought this was going to be a little bit lighter. I probably should have swatched these before applying them straight to my lid. So that's kind of my own fault. But I will say, I feel like this color story is a little confusing then. I'm gonna go back in with that first brush and just blend out the edges. Because now I feel like this eye look definitely does not go with the blush. Which, definitely, side note, the blush definitely toned down a lot. Like it's nowhere near as pigmented as it was when I first applied, which isn't a bad thing, it's just something to note. My eyes are too grungy for what I wanted. They're too dark. So I'm just gonna hope that this goes well. I'm gonna take that purple highlighter shade from before, and I'm just gonna put this on the lid. Actually quite pretty. I really like this purple. And these powders feel just like the eyeshadow, so I think they're all the same formula. And I'm gonna take this tiny brush. This is a ColourPop E29 brush. I'm gonna go in with this second pinky highlighter color as my inner corner highlight. The reflect on these are very pretty, and like I said, the formula is quite creamy, so it picks up on the brush really nicely. And it's a very impactful color. I think that's it for the eyes. I'm gonna stop playing around with them. Final look, it didn't turn out too bad, but it's still just a little bit darker than what I was going for. That's honestly my fault. I should have like swatched the eyeshadows before I put them on my eyes. For lips, I'm actually gonna go in with the lightest color in this same cheek palette because it's supposed to be lip and cheeks. I'm just gonna take a little bit on my finger and just blend this out. I feel like I'm clashing a lot, but it's fine. I'm not going anywhere today. And I do feel like the blush faded a little bit, so I'm just gonna go back in with just a little bit. Okay, and I think that's everything. Let's do a little recap. This, the matte tint. I'm loving this. You literally cannot tell. It's on my skin. It does have that tea tree oil in it, so if you're sensitive to fragrances and essential oils, I would stay clear of this, but it literally looks like there's nothing on my skin, and it covered just enough. Like I would use this every day. The concealer I need to play around with just a little bit longer. So far I'm liking it. It doesn't seem to settle into any of my fine lines, and it doesn't look super dry on my skin. So those are positive signs, but I think I just need to use this a little bit longer before I can fully form my thoughts on it. The bronzer, I think I also need to play around with this a little bit more. I do like that you get some highlighters in here already. As far as like the bronzers themselves, I don't like the way they blended over top of the creams. That's fine, I'll just use it underneath creams. I like the way it looks on my forehead though, so I will definitely keep playing around with this. And also, these pans are ginormous. This is a very big pan. As far as the cheek products, these are very pigmented, which is not a bad thing. You just need to be a little bit careful when you're applying them, and even the lightest coverage section still carries a lot of pigment. They do seem to fade a little bit faster, which is not unusual for like a cream product, especially one that feels like this soft and creamy. So also just kind of be aware of that. Maybe you need to powder right after putting it on or something like that. I did go over it with my sponge a couple times because I was trying to take down the coverage, so that also might have been why it felt like it disappeared kind of quickly. As far as the eyeshadow palette, it's okay. It's not my favorite. I don't hate it though. The colors in this palette don't really make sense to me. Both of these shades are very dark. This is like, to me, this is not like a full palette that you can make multiple looks out of. Although this was like an included gift for spending $30 on Undone Beauty when I purchased these off Ulta. I'm sure I'll like these as like individual colors, but together as a palette, it's not my favorite. And also the shimmer shades are very creamy. They seem like the same formula as the highlighter and as the two highlighting shades in the bronzer. They're very soft feeling, and they are quite pigmented for what they are. Also, comparing this one gold shade to this gold shade in the highlighting pan, they look almost identical in the pan. I like the highlight itself. It's a little glittery, but it's not super glittery. Like, I feel like you can take it down a little bit. This purple shade is so pretty for on the lids. I wouldn't wear this as an actual highlighter, but I really like this as an eyeshadow topper like I did today. And again, the formula is very creamy. It picked up well on this tiny brush, so I'll need to play around with it a little bit more with different brushes, because I know a lot of shimmer shades don't work well with brushes. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you aren't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!